Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Thank you everyone that is joining this session today. I am very pleased that we were able to have this session because it's the one that Stacy and I were looking forward the most. And one of the sessions that speak to our hearts, one of the main issues that we have on islands around the globe that has to do with transportation and the importance of having a good transportation service that is affordable, that is sustainable, that is good with the environment, that we can take and rely on this service, right? And this is an issue that we have on islands in the Caribbean, in the Pacific, in Europe, or other regions of the world. There are some good solutions and good examples that we can consider taking advantage of or inspiring on these solutions for our islands around the globe. My name is Christian Sakino. I am the Chief of Staff at Island Innovation, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this fantastic session. Now, before we go to the topic in hand, I just want to let you know that we at Island Innovation want to get to know you better. So you will see a poll appear on your screen right now where you can answer what region of the world you're connecting from, what industry and what sector you belong to. And as you can, we will give you some time so you can answer the poll. I wanted to let you know that here at Island Innovation, we are a full-time agency. We have services available for everyone around the globe. We build digital bridges between the world's islands. And if you want to find out more about our services, you can visit islandinnovation.co. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that if you don't follow us already on Instagram, you can do so at _Island Innovation. _Island Innovation. You will see us on Instagram, and feel free to tag us to share content with us because we are always there with islanders around the globe. And not just islanders, people from the coastal areas or even landlocked countries that we have on our newsletter, on our social media, that can see inspiration in island solutions. It's like sometimes we see on these events how a solution in the Pacific can be inspiring someone in the Caribbean to create an organization just based on that solution. And that is one of the best things that we have on these events. We're able to see islands taking the best example out of each other, and you can be on a remote Pacific island connecting with a person in Europe, in Asia, in the Caribbean, or in another place in the world, and you are able to do so on these virtual platforms. So we are always glad to have this space for everyone. All right, so I see that we have a lot of people from the Caribbean region on this session, the Caribbean #1 here, but closely followed by North America and Europe. We have a strong representation of these three regions, and we also have representation from the Pacific. Thank you so much, because for some of you, it's super early in the morning at this hour or quite late at night. So we thank you for being able to participate in this session. As far as the sector goes, we have the private sector. The majority of you are from the private sector, followed by the NGO, academia, and government sectors. And the industry, most of you belong either to environmental services or ocean conservation, energy, management consulting, or waste and circular economy. So thank you for attending today's session. Now, I want to welcome my colleague, Stacy Alvarez de la Campa, who is going to be co-moderating this panel with me. Stacy, this is a topic that we have discussed so many times, right, during the years that we know each other.
Yes, we have.
If you want to go from one country to the other to visit, it would take us a lot of time and a lot of money, right? Why isn't there an electric ferry, for example, or a hydrogen jet, or something else that we can do to visit each other? And you can see you can take Google Maps and just see Margarita Island, where I'm based, and Barbados. They look super close on the map.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense, right, that we have to go to 2 or 3 countries to just visit each other. And this is something that is happening not only here in the Caribbean region, it can happen in the Pacific. if you are in Tonga and you want to go to Hawaii, you would have to go to 3 different countries just to get to see a family member that you may have there or a friend. So this session is going to address the issue of transportation and how can we find better solutions. Right, Stacey?
Yes, definitely. We do need those solutions. So we look forward to a really engaging discussion. And we look forward to seeing ways that we can inspire each other to follow up on what's happening in these solutions to actually see this happen at some point in our regions.
That's right. And let's hear from you in the chat and also on the Q&A section, because we want this session to be as interactive as possible. Yeah. Feel free to share your issue with transportation on your island, and we will make sure to address in any way that we can and direct it to any of the panelists that have more knowledge in this, because we have a very fantastic panel here with us with experts in the field of transportation and different types, hydrogen jets, electric ferries, other types of transportation that are sustainable, right? I know that people around the globe see electric cars as a solution, but is it really the solution for remote islands that don't have the capacity to transform their electric grid into something green, right? Yeah, sometimes we rely on fossil fuel to just get by with electricity. Yeah. But we have many capabilities here in the island for solar, right? Because we have sun basically almost every year.
Yeah, the trick with solar is storage. That's always the thing. And I know that some of our experts are going to talk about that, but that's always the issue with renewable energy, that it's not as easy to store, and to create the infrastructure around that is challenging for developing economies. So we should have a very good discussion today.
That's right. And without further ado, let's go with our first panelist. We have a pre-recorded video from Halfdan Abrahamsen, the project manager at Aerial in Denmark, which is going to speak a lot about his solution and how has the Aerial project been impacting positively this region in Denmark, a small island, and how has changed the lives on people that live there. So let's watch this video.
Hi, my name is Halfdan Abrahamsen. I am a project manager at the Municipal Energy Office on the island of Ærø, which is in southern Denmark. And I'm here to speak about the e-ferry. Now you can see encircled is our small island, and we sail 22 nautical miles, or about 40 kilometers, to the island just west of our island, between charges. So that's a round trip, 40 kilometers or 22 nautical miles. And we sail the fully electric ferry. And of course, one of the concerns we had was that we couldn't achieve the frequency of service that our passengers were used to. Anyone who lives on an island knows that you need to be able to deliver a good service. Otherwise, people won't stay on the island, or it's hard to attract new inhabitants. But we figured out that it was possible to maintain the service and even better it. We sail about 10 minutes faster across than we used to with the old diesel. And if you look on the orange line on the bottom of the screen, you can see to the left during night, then we fully charge, and then we sail one round trip. You can see the energy decreases. That's when we sail. And then we get back to home port and we charge for about 10 minutes during turnaround, sail one more round trip, turn around, sail one more round trip, and then there's a lunch break where we can basically top off the batteries during half an hour or 40 minutes. And we can basically keep on doing that. And we decided to have more batteries on board than strictly needed, so we only needed that one charger. So we could sail both both trips, and we could maintain the service, because the charger is quite expensive. So it's the strategy on how to develop the route is an important part of building an electric ferry route. We spend about 1,600 kilowatt hours for one round trip, and that is cheap. We spend about a quarter of what we spent money-wise when we sailed with a diesel ferry. And so you could take that number and look at your local electricity prices and see what the cost comes out to for you. Now, the business case on the left, that's one of the good things about this project, is that not only have we shown a significant emission reduction, but we have also shown that the business case is good. So the green line you can see on the left is the e-ferry series, and you will see that you pay more upfront. Our local shipyard, which built the ferry and where you could order a new ferry tomorrow if you wanted a new Ellen, they say that the cost is about 15% more than a similar diesel. But then after at least 8 years, then you will start seeing savings, because lower operating costs, lower maintenance costs. And on the right, you can see a graph that we made on Ærø. It might not be completely accurate at this point, but that's the battery system price development. And we can see the batteries keep falling in price, densities increase, and in general, electric systems become more standard, more off the shelf. So the business case will get even better in the future, I'm sure. And here you can see our reductions. The green line is the Ærø grid, which is completely renewable energy, and then the Danish grid, which is a bit less renewable energy, and then the EU average is the deep blue line there. So of course, your emission reductions depend on your grid. And if you don't have any renewable energy at all, if you only supply the ferry with coal or diesel electric plants, then it's not really worth it from an emission point. So you need some amount of green energy for it to really make sense. But then you start seeing significant savings. Compared to a similar modern diesel, we save about 2,500 tons of CO2 per year. And so the case for going fully electric is lower operating costs, less maintenance. We don't actually have to have an engineer on board because the systems are so simple. The life cycle economy is better because of those things, and passenger satisfaction is high. Reduced noise and vibration. There's hardly any noise really. There's no smog at all, and we can see that both local passengers and tourists really like to sail with the Ellen. They choose the Ellen if they have a choice, depending on where they have to go in the country. So in that sense, it has also been a success. Now, like I said, you need to supply the system with the electric grid with renewable energy for it to really make sense. On our island, what we have are cooperatively owned wind turbines. So there are 640 local owners who chipped in a bit of money, and then we were able to erect these turbines ourselves and keep them locally owned. So that's one way to do it. These are fixed price shares. You can't they're not stock market shares. They're simply just people chipping in, and then you get some dividends from the electricity, and you also get local ownership, which helps acceptance in the landscape. So that's just a small tip if you need to expand your infrastructure. You're welcome to contact me. You can see my email address on the left if you have any specific questions. Otherwise, good luck on your projects, and have a good conference.
Wow, so thanks very much to Halfdan for that presentation. So already I can see in the chat calls for a Caribbean ferry, that we need an regional Caribbean ferry, which we have thought about and wish that we could have. One thing that does jump out at me, and I'm not sure how the respondents or the people in the chat have noticed that, but it seems to me that there is quite a lot of surrounding infrastructure, and not just surrounding technical infrastructure, but also the technical skills needed in terms of human resources to maintain and to create the surrounding infrastructure. And that's something that might be challenging for our region. There's a lot of expertise that would have to be developed and nurtured in order for this to be able to move forward. I think also that this is something that could get off the ground. We just really need to see more of a push to, in terms of investment and in terms of actually creating the will for it to move forward. Well, there is the will, it's now the way for it to move forward. So on that note, I'd like to turn things over to Guillaume. Guillaume is the Vice President of Global E-Marine of Le Clancher. And Guillaume, I know you have quite a bit that you can talk to us about in this arena. So the floor is yours, sir.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I thought maybe to illustrate a bit of some of the things that I wanted to share with you, I could share my screen if you allow me to. Share, here you go. So what I wanted to discuss, I looked at the point of today's event and the conference around having not only a non-environmentally friendly, but accessible and cost competitive type of solutions. I understand these constraints. And so I've been listing here several solutions to that. There are several. The marine industry is going through a very tremendous amount of changes. There's a lot of things happening, and the transition is really happening in marine. But to answer those challenges, you could look at different ways: upgrading your existing fleet of ships. You could look at building new ships. You could look at different, I'm thinking fuels, for example. But for sure, one big point, if there was one thing I would say today, is that electrical energy storage in ships, fully electric or hybrid vessels, is a proven technology. We've been doing it for several years already, and we have actual proof that it works very well. And that's the big thing I wanted to discuss with you, because if there was to be any concerns, questions about it, I'm here today to answer your questions. That's the point of my presence today. And as a matter of fact, we are the one who delivered the batteries to the ELN, to the e-ferry that we just had the video on. And that's a bigger zoom on the actual project financials. There's a lot of benefits of having batteries and electric ships in general, but obviously people always question the financial viability of such project. But actually today, it's already the cheapest solution to go for. As a matter of fact, this project is already 3-4 years old, and already at the time, the return on investment of investing a bit more at the beginning was already 4 to 5 years. And that's considering, as Halfdan was saying in his video earlier, it's considering older technologies of batteries that were less competitive, less performant. Today, the return on investment is even lower. So that's very important to note. But obviously, one of the big benefits of going with an electric ship versus a traditional fuel-propelled type of ships is the carbon footprint. Here is another example. If anyone had any doubt, those are the actual measurements on the ship. It's sailing currently in Finland, and you can see that the reduction in CO2, SOx, NOx, it's tremendous, right? So this is why we see a huge big boom. I mean, we are a true manufacturer of batteries at Le Clancher. We do everything ourselves. We tend to call it from powder to pack. So we really buy the powder and we make the whole battery complete system for the ships, and we deliver and install, commission the batteries on the ships and do the support during the lifetime of the ships. There's a huge boom happening. Those are market data, but if you want my data, they are here. It's the project of references, and you can see it's all type of ships. It's not just ferries, because I suspect on islands you need more than just ferry to transport cars and people. You also need to transport goods. And interestingly, the application of the battery can be very diverse. I often hear, but batteries, it's not big enough, performance enough yet to be to have 100% electric ships? Well, sometimes it is, and that's the case of the top left corner project we did with Helen and Afghan. But it's also the case of this one. I'll come back to this one, a fully electric autonomous container ship sailing here in Norway. But you have hybrid hydrogen, hybrid LNG, hybrid diesel to be as sustainable as possible, at least when you get closer to the islands. But coming back to this one, to the Yara Birkeland, it's a step ahead. Huh? It's an autonomous ship, so it's maybe a bit too much. The good thing is they are leading the path and they will share their results. Honestly, the technology is there. The technology is not so much a problem. It's more the regulation around it, right? Typically, the type of dilemma we find with the Tesla about what is it going to do when it has to crash against a vehicle or another one or a person. It's typically the type of dilemmas they have to answer. But the technology is ready, and the ship is already sailing. Not fully autonomous yet, but with only 2 people actually for a very large container ship. So it's happening. Batteries, it's there. And us as manufacturer, we are just ready and we are ramping up supply chain manufacturing line to be producing more and supply more. I thought I would just put a picture because maybe none of you have seen what a picture of what a battery for a ship looks like. This is what it looks like. We have batteries, the batteries as we call them, that's what we have here as a module. It's in an enclosure and then we just stack them, right? And a battery system can be 1 meter long to 200 meters long. Obviously, you just put as much as you need, depending on your application. The technology is evolving a lot. So actually, over the last 4 years, the energy density, meaning as much energy you can put in a given space, has doubled. And we expect the next 4 years to bring the same benefits. So it's certainly going better. And so this is why, again, we see more ships adopting this technology because it's proven and it's working very well. We have very good return on experience on those. So that's what the system looks like. I will make one last point. Obviously, the selection of the system you make is very important. And you don't do it by yourself. There is an entire ecosystem in marine, with the shipyard, the ship owner, the ship operator, system integrators, and manufacturers like ourselves who can guide you to the right technology. And it's about selecting the right cell. We believe water cooling is the best way. If you didn't know, all the electric cars today are already water cooled. You might think it's bizarre, electricity and water, but actually all the electric cars are water cooled, and so is our battery at Le Clancher. Obviously, the safety needs to be looked at. And finally, on the right side, a very important one. It's no point having a big, large battery if you can't recharge it. And I suspect it could be a big challenge on some of the islands where the port doesn't have the infrastructure to recharge ships very, very quickly. And their battery can be also an alternative where you would have batteries recharging at night, for example, when electricity might be a bit cheaper, and have the electricity ready instantly at high power to recharge the ships when they come back at port for recharging. So this is basically what I wanted to say. We'll see what comes up in the questions, but maybe some people will start questioning the sustainability of the production of the batteries, and I'll be ready to answer that, because if you ask me if battery is 100% right, I would say no. If you ask me if I think it's one of the solutions to be greener than we are today and to support the transition to a greener shipping, yes, 100%. It is a lot better to do it with batteries today than it is to do it in conventional fuel, by far. So that would be my last point for now.
Thanks very much for that, Guillaume. I think it was awesome. It was really interesting to actually see the battery and what it looked like and see the technology involved. I think we would definitely agree that, yes, this is a very rapid transition that's happening. I think it's happening. I always think of your buzzwords, it's happening. This is something that the technology development is rapid, what the changes in the industry are rapid. So for me, it calls for us in, regions that have islands like the Caribbean and the Pacific to step up our interest and to be a lot more, I think, proactive in terms of seeking out this information, and if there's any way that we can lobby or partner. I mean, if we'll take public-private partnerships, is often the case in our regions as well, see how we can push to make something like this happen. There was actually a very interesting comment in the chat, which alluded to the political reality in some Caribbean destinations where, depending on the government in power or leadership, often these projects might start and get off the ground a little bit, but then if there's a change of government or if there's a change of policy, things fall flat again. So this is where I think we, as the people on the ground, need to amplify exactly what's going on. And again, a lot of it is marketing. A lot of it is getting the information out there about how much better this is. When you talked about, the cuts in CO2 emissions, for example, I think that was a really, really valid point. Christian, what did you notice? My wonderful co-moderator, anything you'd like to say about the presentation?
Thank you. One of the comments that you made, Stacey, I think it happens everywhere around the globe, not just in the Caribbean, that sometimes when there's a change in government, things don't continue, and they should, regardless of the political orientation. I think that it is our job as citizens, as the electors, to push everyone to come together and just stay on common ground on these solutions, because we can all take advantage of these solutions as citizens, because we all are going to need transportation. We all are going to need food security. Yeah. We're all going to need all of these topics that we have been discussing on the summit. And I think it comes for us, the citizens, to push the governments to abide by the rules and also to continue projects that make sense for everyone. Exactly. And one of the comments that I saw on Halfdan and on Guillaume's presentation is that this project, Ellen, it's great because the people over there came together. Yes, and they were basically the driving force that allowed for the windmills to be installed. I think this is something that we could do in the Caribbean, for example, where we have other ways of, like, for example, solar energy. I know that storage is not something that it's super easy, but we do also have the capacity to install windmills, right? Because we have strong winds here in the Caribbean, and I know it's hurricane season, so everyone should be aware of this, but when it's not hurricane season, it's just a normal day, you have strong winds. So we can take care of that and utilize to make energy possible. And that could be another session. We could go on and on.
Yeah, I know. Because
this topic is super interesting. And I saw the participation on the chat. Thank you, everyone, because I saw discussions happening there. This is the idea. So everyone gets involved and say their thoughts on this. And welcome you again to add any questions that you may have on the Q&A box so we can address them on the later part of the section. Now, Stacey, who is next?
Okay, so coming up next, we have Daniel, the Business Development and Partnerships of ZeroAvia. The floor is yours, Daniel. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, unmuted. Thank you very much for inviting ZeroAvia to this event. So I'll give a short presentation, but it's going to be oral, and I do invite people to go visit our website, and ultimately, if they want to ask further questions or discuss, happy to answer questions through LinkedIn in particular. So ZeroAvia is an established startup. We're now 200 employees. We were created back in early 2018 by an American called Val Miftakhov in close to the Silicon Valley. And we design hydrogen electric powertrains. I'll explain a little more what that means, but of course, at the very beginning, the idea was to really decarbonize, really tackle the decarbonization of aviation. And there was, of course, a debate, and there occasionally still is, as to which method is best in order to do that. And I would say in general that there is not one size fits all solution, and there are possibly different solutions for different market segments, etc. So nevertheless, we did consider that the hydrogen electric path was by far the most efficient and the most interesting way to go forward in order to bring zero emission aviation to the market. Of course, this has to be done gradually, and to be realistic, you've got to start by not only addressing the market that exists, meaning aircraft that are already flying, but you've also got to you've got to address also those aircraft, if they're not yet flying, that are going through the factory. So that's the line fit. So retrofit for the first and line fit for the second. So the powertrains that we're developing are based on the utilization of fuel cells and green hydrogen. We currently have two commercial products. The first one is a 600 kilowatt powertrain, and the second one is a 2 to 5 megawatt powertrain. The first one addresses commuter aviation, so that's the segment in the 10 to 20 passenger category, and the second, more powerful powertrain is for aircraft such as the ATR or the Dash 8, so that's 70 or 80 passengers. We already have something like 40 flight tests under our belt in relation to a smaller version of these powertrains, and very, very much looking forward to the first flight of the 600 kilowatt version, which should happen in the next few weeks. So these systems, as I said, are hydrogen powered, and the hydrogen has to be green, but I'll come back to that in a minute. The type of aircraft we're talking about, first of all, are, for example, the Cessna Caravan, which is a 10-seater single engine, or the Twin Otter, which is a twin engine with 19 seats. The very interesting thing about these solutions is that not only are they zero emission and lower noise, but they are also significantly cheaper to operate. And that is, I do believe that this combination is probably the key to significantly enhancing connectivity between islands in particular, but not only. Basically because due to a decrease in operating costs of about 40 to 50%, the threshold the threshold at which a certain route is profitable actually comes down significantly, and therefore you are opening up a number of routes which could not be operated and which now become valuable in terms of a business for operators. So we do believe that this is a fantastic solution for islands in particular. We do see connectivity being established in archipelagos. Of course, there is, I would say, a precondition, and that is the infrastructure. And the production of hydrogen, of green hydrogen, is a fundamental aspect of all of this. The good news is that there is a huge effort done in the world, in Europe, in the US, and elsewhere, to actually bring the hydrogen economy to reality. So there are many solutions to produce green hydrogen, particularly obviously through electrolysis, but also ocean thermal energy conversion process, or the thermolysis of biomass. I think the most widely used, and which is going to expand significantly, is the electrolysis one. Whether the power originally is solar, wind, tidal, or hydro is not really the subject. But of course, if we're talking of the Caribbean, you are going to focus on solar and wind as the original power source. But we've got hydro for green hydrogen in Norway. We've got tidal and wind in the Orkney Islands, etc. The very interesting thermolysis of biomass technology or process can be a win-win solution on several aspects, particularly in the Caribbean, if you're able to use sargassum as a feedstock for the process, and that would be absolutely amazing, because obviously you're dealing with several problems at the same time. So if we could, collect the sargassum and be able to actually transform it to green hydrogen, we know this is possible and it's being done. The question is, can it be done economically and to produce hydrogen which is sufficiently pure for mobility? Those are the two conditions, but there seems to be a very, very interesting path in that direction for, in particular, the Caribbean. I think I've covered most of what I wanted to cover. I probably want to emphasize on one aspect. I've mentioned the economics of this new aviation. The reason why hydrogen electric flight is cheaper to operate is because within these systems, you don't have hot parts just like in thermal engines. You don't have complex oil lubrication system. And these are the aspects which create such a high maintenance bill. The other thing is that the actual production and storage of green hydrogen in the future is going to be significantly cheaper than fossil fuels. So take the two together, the maintenance aspect and the fuel, the hydrogen fuel, and you've got a cost or economic equation which is extremely interesting, and which we believe is going to allow this new aviation to considerably expand from 2025 onwards. And that is, I think, the conclusion of what I wanted to say.
Thanks so much, Daniel. I was just sitting here like completely mind blown when you were talking about sargassum and hydrogen, because we actually earlier had a panel discussion that I moderated on precisely looking at sargassum and seaweed in different ways that would be very useful to the region. So you can see that kind of the co-benefits of thinking of how we can bring in hydrogen and use it as a way that can really benefit everyone in the region. Now, I think something that stood out actually in the previous presentation was the mention of electric shipping containers and electric shipping vessels, because one of the ways that we really need to explore alternative fuel sources is because of the rising cost of transporting the amount of food that we import. Now, I think if we had a cheaper way to have interregional transport, or food prices would be a lot cheaper. So that's something, and then much more affordable. So that's the key there. It all adds up. We have the food security aspect of it coming into the mix as well. And I think what also struck me in everything you were saying, Daniel, was I think a key aspect that might be missing is the knowledge sharing. You talked about what's happening in Orkney Islands and what's happening in Eru and what's happening in different places. But I think once we have some more consistent knowledge sharing and knowledge exchanges, I think that would really help to be the beginning of something that would be viable. It's already viable. It's just putting it into play in a way that's meaningful in this region. And I think, I can see in the chat, a lot of people are saying that this is going to be something that we really should think of embracing. We do have a couple of comments and questions, though, but before we get to those, we'd love to hear from Adam, please. You're here patiently waiting, the Vice President of Commercial Sales from Regent Hawaii. Adam, the floor is yours. We're excited we see the background. We see this like awesome machine there, like flying in the background of your screensaver. So yeah, we want to hear about that. Adam, the floor is yours.
Sure. Adam Triolo, Vice President Commercial Business Development for Regent. We're a venture-backed startup that's building sea gliders. So I'm going to be ambitious and share a video to start. Hopefully this works, and then I'll give you guys a quick brief on who we are and what we do.
It appears clear downrange. Copy. Affirmative. Training. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Airport. Almost.
So hopefully that came through clearly.
Yes, that was great.
Great, fantastic. So I'll just kind of walk people through, who we are and what we do. So Regent is building boats, actually. As much as our vessel looks like an aircraft, it's actually a boat. Really, this was about solving the hassle factor associated with existing modes of transportation. So whether it was long queues at the airport, or heavy surf on ferries, or long wait times in heavy traffic, really this was about coming up with a new mode of transportation that could move people efficiently, emit zero carbon, and be in service by 2025. So what we've created is called a sea glider, and it does exactly that, except it travels at 180 miles per hour and it can use existing dock infrastructure to support it. So sea gliders work on a concept called ground effect. So for those pilots out there, every time you take off or land and you're within the wingspan of your wing to the water surface or to the ground, you experience this thing called ground effect. And it's a sandwiching of the air between the bottom of the wing and the water surface. And it allows us certain efficiencies. Specifically, we can carry larger payloads further distances at lower power settings, but it also allows us this unique provision to certify the vessel as a boat instead of an aircraft. So we operate exclusively in ground effect so that we are a boat and classified as one, but it also allows us to carry higher payloads. Regent is really just combining existing forms of technology in a novel way. So the Akronoplans of the 1960s were these massive ships of war. They were built by the Russians to carry large payloads. And they needed these 8 large motors across the front to kind of drag the vessel through that heavy surf, break the suction of the lifting surface against the water, and become airborne. We solve that challenge using a retractable hydrofoil. So using our hydrofoils, which is just a wing for the water, we generate lift in the water. We break the suction to get up and out of that heavy hydrodynamic drag. And then using our distributed propulsion system and advanced battery technology, we actually blow the wing. And blowing the wing means that we're forcing air uniformly over the wing. And that also makes us what's the equivalent of an e-STOL, or electric short takeoff and landing vessel. So by blowing the wing, we dramatically decrease the takeoff speed of the vessel. So where a traditional aircraft of this size, say a Cessna Grand Caravan, would need to be going 80 knots to take off on the water, we can take off as low as 40 knots on the water. So our hydrofoils unlock significant wave tolerance. They get us up out of that heavy hydrodynamic drag. And then using our distributed propulsion system, we're able to become airborne at very low air speeds and then travel in ground effect just above the water. So our vessel floats, foils, and flies. So when we're near the dock and in the no wake zone, we will float on our hull. When we proceed away from the dock and into the heavy, busy harbor, we rise up onto our hydrofoils. And then once clear of the busy, congested space near the harbors, we can come up onto our wing. But the difference between Regent's product and all wigs of the past is really this center section here, which is that foil section. So most people assume that in a wing and ground effect vessel, you either have to be going very, very slow in float mode or very, very fast in fly mode. When in fact, with our blown wing, we can go as low as 40 knots in fly mode. And then utilizing our hydrofoil, we can be going 15 to 40 knots when we're in this foil mode. So really, we see our vessel being part of this all new multimodal transportation system of the future. So we can use some of the infrastructure that's being developed for EVs, for eVTOLs, for hydrogen product out there. We can use that shared infrastructure and we can solve that regional transportation challenge, plugging into this infrastructure, moving people back into the cities, but actually leveraging existing docks where we can actually move more people. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of who we are and how we operate. I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Again, we're rolling out a whole new mode of transportation here, but the efficiencies are significant. When you look at the kinds of batteries that we'll be using and the efficiency with which we can operate those batteries, we can dramatically reduce the cost of transportation. So our coding currently shows a $27 ticket for a 100-mile route. So we really have the opportunity here to democratize inter-island transportation. Our direct operating costs versus a traditional gas turbine aircraft demonstrates a significant savings. So where a Cessna Grand Caravan would typically operate at about the $800 to $1,000 per flight hour, that's a gas turbine Cessna Grand Caravan, we would be closer to $350 per flight hour, so about half the operating cost. Versus a Twin Otter, again, we're at about that $325, $350 range, where a Twin Otter is going to be $1,200 to $1,400 per flight hour. So this new mode of transportation can make a difference for people that don't have access, to economical modes of movement. This can make a difference in terms of the frequency of travel that we can offer. But in general, it offers a zero carbon solution to offset some of the other transportation platforms that are out there today. And happy to answer any questions.
Wow. Okay, Adam. Well, that was just brilliant. I can see a lot of, everyone in the chat's reacting very positively. And I think that phrase you said, democratize inter-island transportation, is going to be a huge hit with our audience. I know we're living that right now, right, Christian? We're always talking about what it's like to try to visit family and friends who live in the region. So I think what stood out for me as well in your presentation, Adam, was clearly the level of multi-stakeholder collaboration that needs to be involved, and the knowledge transfer and the coordination of all efforts. And I think that's something that it's definitely worth pursuing. Christian, what are your thoughts?
Definitely, I love the project. When I read the article for the first time, I was like, oh my God, I want to invite someone from your organization. And because it's the kind of projects, and all of us, all of the panelists here have presented solutions that we can begin seeing in action in a couple of years, hopefully here in the Caribbean and other regions of the globe. Because I every time I speak with our colleagues in the Pacific and Asian islands, they also have these hardships. It's like we have a member of the team from the Philippines, and he mentioned the other day, it's hard if I want to go from my island to another one, and it's all fossil fuels. And there is basically no electric something company there that is green that he knows of. And perhaps there are some initiatives, but they are not known in the island country. And the Philippines has a lot of islands, and it would be something challenging at first, but I think that with one of these projects, we could have the Philippines interconnected, and we could have all Caribbean islands interconnected, and all the Pacific islands, which have a lot of distance from one to another. So it's going to require more time, more budget. And and a lot of other hardships. But if we could regionalize and have sectors from the Pacific that are joined between each other, that could be a valuable solution. And I'm happy to hear some thoughts in that front from our experts. And we do have a lot of participation from the audience. I have seen many questions on the Q&A box and also from the chat. And I was checking out the chat and saw a couple that I just have to copy here. And we can start with this and then go to the Q&A, Stacy. But let's put gallery mode here so you can see all of us here in the panel. And we are all with the cameras on, so that's great. So one question from Mike Gabel. He said that Guam is a key site for fueling transoceanic air and sea transport and has excellent conditions for OTEC production of green hydrogen fuel. Are planners and investors interested in this development as an island under the United States legal and security conditions? I think this depends on who you ask, right? And if your company is looking at that place in the Pacific for future investments. But if any of you want to comment on something of this question, please go ahead. Okay, so we can continue on the next one. I think that one may have a lot of interest, but there are a lot of companies, a lot of initiatives that can go there. So Mike, I would say let's try to see if there are some initiatives there that we may not know about, and we can of course have panelists like this for another opportunity, because I know that we are going to try to replicate as much as possible these opportunities for people to present their solutions to islanders around the globe. I saw another comment on the chat from Terry Heberty. What can potentially go wrong with battery-powered ships? Who wants to take it?
I guess it's probably me for answering that one. It's a very good question. There are for sure regulation existing. I must say, battery technology is evolving very quickly, and so the regulations that exist are very important to comply with. But at least I can say I can talk on the behalf of Le Clancher, we go beyond these regulations. We find them to be not demanding enough. And if you looked at my slides, I didn't stop in each line, but actually one of them was around the safety. So typically at Le Clancher, we have a philosophy that we call the active firefighting system. So instead of like others to satisfy ourselves by just having initial insulation materials between the different components, we actually have a water-based suppression system that can inject water into the battery modules if anything was going to go wrong. Every single component, every single cell is monitored in temperature, gas, smoke. And first, it's very unlikely it will happen that you would have a battery going on fire. Very, very unlikely. If it does, it's probably because it's coming from the outside. But if it does, we, at least at Le Clancher, have the capacity to extinguish or at least contain the fire within the very small component of the battery. It's a very, very good question. But we can explain why all the batteries are not the same and why the selection of the battery is quite important. Absolutely. And there's a lot of washing around this, there's a lot we are 112 years old battery maker, right? So we are not new, and we do marine batteries for about 10 years now. So we have the experience, but we see a lot of new makers coming. It's a very attractive business for me. And indeed, it's very difficult for many people, ship owner, shipyard, system integrator, design institute, to really understand the difference between each of them. And for sure, safety is one key point.
Thank you so much, Guillaume. I think that safety, I can honestly say, it always on our minds with these types of solutions. And I know that companies like yours are always striving to get the best safety possible. And I saw a comment earlier from Henry in the chat. Hello, Henry, if you're here, that the batteries that you produce are guaranteed for 10 years. which is great, and it allows people to plan ahead. And I hope that other companies are doing the same thing, where they try to maintain a cycle for these batteries where they can be disposed safely, and then they can be replaced easily as well. We have another comment here in the Q&A, and it's from the Philippines. Catanduanes Island, I hope that I pronounced that correctly, from Enrico Masaka, said that they would like to receive information about renewable energy projects because they are reliant on diesel boats. Is there an educational exchange on your companies where you could, for example, have on your website information for locals that are interested in renewable energy?
I mean, as it relates to regions, I would just say I don't know that we have a dedicated page per se to specific electric energy, but we're happy to answer any questions from customers that are exploring ways to integrate sea gliders into their existing operations. So we have multiple PhDs around the age of 30 at this company. One of them is a data analyst that actually runs a tremendous amount of analysis associated with route structure and dock spacing and the like. So we're happy to provide that information. They can fill out a contact form at our website, or they can reach out to me directly via LinkedIn.
Fantastic. We have another question on the Q&A. This comes from Marie Claire Higgins. Hello, Marie Claire. I hope I pronounced that right. I think the challenges we have as islands is that we have regional organizations that don't address this issue or don't take action. Would it be possible to have a coalition of private companies that stand with citizens and we can make our governments do their things? Good question.
Yeah, I mean, again, speaking for Regent, one of our largest priorities is coalition building. So we've spent a tremendous amount of time in Hawaii, for instance, working with state and local government, working with the governor's office, working with private interest groups, working with HEI and Pacific Current. We really believe that this coalition building is the only way to address these problems and come up with novel solutions. So we're a big tent company. We think that you have to bring in like-minded individuals from the community and from private industry and frankly from government to solve these kinds of big overarching problems. So we're always keen to work with anyone who shares our goals for decarbonizing this space, improving our environment, and giving people more access to low-cost transportation.
That's great. I think that the more we can organize the private sector and the citizens to help us push the government do their thing, I think it's great. So thank you, Marie Claire, for that question. And thank you, Adam, for that answer, because it was very interesting to hear. I have some other questions here. Some from Benjamin, who has been very active in the chat. Hello, Benjamin. And I'm going to try to abridge them into just one. Conscious of time, but I think that we will extend the session for another 10 minutes or so. So we have time to address all questions because we have been having a lot of participation from the audience. Is that the challenges that hydrogen has regarding this style, design, and management, and how can be this, or how is it proven safe for the aviation community and customers?
Okay, so of course there are safety issues with any energy systems, and that is also true for hydrogen. I think the key thing here is that obviously two things. Safety, first of all, is part of the design itself at ZeroAvia, and I guess also with any hydrogen propulsion system builder. And second, we're working in an industry which is the most regulated one in the world. So anything we're going to come up with has to be certified, not qualified, certified. It's the FAA in the United States, it's EASA in Europe, and the rules that we have to follow for that and the are extremely stringent. And when I say extremely, it's I think it's the right word. So ultimately, yes, these aspects of safety are being dealt with all the time, constantly in every single decision of the design, and that is being checked by the people who actually will certify these systems, and they are included from scratch in the actual design, the development phase of these projects.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And Adam, we have another question for you from Pamela Burnside. What distance can the Sea Glider cover?
Sure. And just need to extend my apologies. This will be the last question I'll have time to take this evening. I have another commitment that's coming up very quickly. But our Sea Glider is built to travel 180 statute miles on end-of-life batteries. So we're using end-of-life batteries as our primary metric. We want to make sure that we exceed people's expectations in terms of what this vessel can do and how far it can go. So 180 statute miles on end-of-life batteries. We're expecting it to go much, much further on brand new batteries. But certainly a tremendous distance when you compare it to the other battery-powered, aircraft or eVTOLs that are coming out right now. So we expect and that's 12 passengers at 180 statute miles, and that's doing about 180 miles per hour.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you for participating with us today. I know that you have that call, so you can go ahead. Thank you so much. Stacy, do we have more questions on the Q&A?
I think a lot of the sentiments expressed actually have to do with, how can people invest in some of these projects? How can we find a way to create that nexus between the public and the private sector in a way that everyone's focused on the same goal? And I think there's also the sentiment I'm seeing expressed is, making governments accountable and, really ensuring that these are solutions that everyone knows about and that everyone can actually push to see established in our regions. Because we're all ready for the collaboration. We all want to be able to travel and visit family and friends and feel that sense of connectivity between islands that, particularly in light of the pandemic, any way that we can connect to each other, we really want to cherish. So yeah, that's basically what I'm seeing as a sentiment expressed a great deal. So I think we need to continue this conversation some more for sure, but there'll be follow-up. I can see there's, we're gonna keep in touch as much as we can with our panelists and see how we can extend the conversation a bit more towards actionable solutions.
That's right, and I want to thank all of our speakers for being here today. It has been great to hear your solutions, your case studies, and this a lot of information that we have covered here. And I'm sure that this will become also a material for students everywhere that are seeing the transportation or studying something related to transportation that may be of help. So we appreciate the messages. I have been receiving a couple of direct messages on the chat from students. Don't be shy. You can post them on the general one. I know that our speakers are very approachable, so don't worry about that. And thank you for being here on the session. And I would like to leave the floor first to Guillaume and then to Daniel for a final conclusion, 1 minute or so. Guillaume?
Yeah, again, thank you very much for having us. If you need any support in your projects, ambitions, questions around electrical and more efficient solutions, more sustainable battery for ships, for sure, let us know. We start having a large experience across different type of ships and the world and geographic zones. So again, let us know. But the solution is proven and it's being deployed as we speak. So you can capture the train.
So when it comes to hydrogen aviation and hydrogen in general, I would say that, and this comes back to the last question that you dealt with, the private sector has to be dealing with the aircraft itself, the airlines, but it's up to the politicians to do their job, if I may say. when it comes to developing the infrastructure. And there are so many good reasons to do so.
Yes.
Whether you're talking of resilience, independence for you know, a country's energy production, whether you're talking of industry, where you're talking of transports, including aviation, but not only, etc. There are many, many reasons today which justify a serious look into these solutions and subsequent investment.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much to all our participants, or incredible audience. Thank you for your engagement. We really love seeing the questions and the comments in the chat. You know, your community, as our community, you make us who we are. So we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you again to all of our panelists for this amazing discussion. There will be future opportunities to come back and study more and learn more about this, I'm sure. And thank you so much to our audience. I want to let you know that the Virtual Island Summit is not over. We continue over the weekend. We have a couple of sessions tomorrow, and on Sunday we have our final sessions. I want to particularly invite you, now that I saw that we have students here on the audience, we have a youth session on Sunday. So please check out our agenda on the website and make sure to attend. You will see a lot of youth like yourself tackling climate change, renewable energy, and all of these topics that we have been covering during the week on the Virtual Island Summit. We are super happy that we have had a lot of participation on these sessions, and not only live, it's sometimes, and we try to cater time zones because of this. We know that time zones don't make it easy to attend live sessions. I saw a comment in the chat that it was super early on the Pacific, so I appreciate you for being here. But if you miss some part of this session, you can watch the replay on our website. All of the sessions are immediately available after this session ends. And visit islandinnovation.co, where you can find out more information.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Quickly, if you watch the sessions and you want to reach out to any of us for, you know, if you have any questions based on what you've seen, please feel free to do so, even if it's not live. We'll do our best to get back to you.
That's right. We are always looking forward to your comments.
Yes.
So thank you so much, everyone. It has been a pleasure. Let's see each other on the next session. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.